Hi, everybody. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking to Chris Raroque, serial product designer, developer, learner, and all-around entrepreneur about how he builds products. His most recent product, Ellie, is a daily planner that he, in many ways, ideated and started developing in the open with all of us following along for the ride. So we're going to dive into how he decides what to build, how he attracts his earliest users, how he comes up with a business and a product strategy, and a bunch more related topics. Hope you'll enjoy it.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, Krupa. Good to see you. Very good on my end.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a startup. It's called Aloha. We do like software development outsourcing for startups, and I also do a lot of like indie side projects on the side. Primarily a front end developer, so I do Swift and React, and yeah, that's what takes up most of my time. Just like both of these things, but everything in the world of software, like that's what consumes my life.
Nice. So, one of the things that you do, which I think is really cool, is that you also have side projects that you work on that are very similar to your interests there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I have two projects. So one's called Mogul. It's a personal CRM, which is basically just I think the best way to describe this for people who don't know what a CRM is, it's kind of like a networking app. So it's like a way it's honestly for people who have like not so great memory like me to just remember details about people. And then the other one is called Ellie, and it's kind of like a daily planner. So it just helps me. Actually, a better way to describe it, it's almost like Trello and Google Calendar like combined.
Nice. Ellie's an interesting one because I've been following you for quite some time, and I remember quite a while ago you started talking about Ellie. You wanted to start talking about how do I go from talking about it to actually building it. And so getting to watch you from the whole process of ideation to iterating on a design and getting feedback
Yeah.
has been really fascinating. So I want to dive a little bit in with
Yeah.
Ellie a little further with you on. So what motivated you to start Ellie? Why were you deciding to you already mentioned it's no, you have Google Calendar, you have Notion, you have all of these things. So why Ellie? What brought you?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I completely forgot that you're right. I did start just tweeting about it from ideation. Like I completely forgot that because I've been doing it, I guess like for like a few months now, but I forgot that I even talked about like when I first started doing it, but that's pretty interesting. But the reason that I started it, it's so yeah, it was totally by accident. And I was actually using this service called Sensama, and they're by like, I will never hide this. Like they are the inspiration behind this. I was a user of theirs for 2 years, and they actually came up with this like concept of this like Trello and Google Calendar combined.
Yeah.
And the thing that was like super unique, which I've never seen anyone do this, is they had this like infinite Kanban view. So usually like for Kanbans like Trello, it's like you put like static columns together for different statuses. But what was unique about them was like they put a calendar on the Kanban, so it was like infinite like scrolling. Like I can scroll like all the way to next year, all the way back a year. And being able to visualize that was like super interesting to me. So I can, when I start my day, I can put some tasks on this Kanban for today, and then I can almost like plan out my week. And I was a user of theirs for 2 years, absolutely loved it. And they really have a huge focus on integrations. And I think because of because of that focus, the pricing like increased significantly. Actually, I don't really know what it was a long time ago, but it's pretty pricey for a consumer app. It's like $20. I think $20 a month, and they're very team focused. So like their end user, I don't think is like consumers. It's definitely businesses. And I found myself like I was really using that core functionality of the Kanban, and but with all the integrations, like that definitely explains why they have to charge that much for it. Those integrations are really expensive, and I just didn't find myself using it. So one day I decided for fun, and it was actually so I can learn Supabase because I was interested in it. So I'm a huge Firebase user, like absolutely love Firebase, but I was interested in using Supabase. So I was like, let me experiment. Let me see if I can recreate that like simple Kanban like in a weekend. And I did it. I ended up switching from Supabase back to Firebase, and I think that's actually possibly the reason we met, is because I think I tweeted about that, saying like, oh, I'm switching back. Like there's some things going on with like Supabase at the time, especially like just it was a little like there were just too many issues with it, And so I built the project over the weekend, just to see what I can do. Still, like, ported it back to Firebase in that same weekend, and I started using it myself. Again, it was just for fun. I just wanted to see if I can do it. And then as I started using it, I was like, wait, I would actually probably use this over Sansama, especially since it's free for me. And
Yep.
I don't really use Sansama to its full potential. Like, I'm not one of their power users. So I hit up the founder of Sansama and I asked him, like, hey man, like, please don't kill me here. Like, do you mind if I like it's literally so similar to what you guys are doing. And we follow each other on Twitter, and I've been like following him for a while. And so I asked this like permission, like, do you mind if I put this out there? And he was like, it's the internet. Like, it's like, you can totally do it. It's all good. And I was like, okay, thank God. And this is proof that I did ask for permission here. But that's actually how it started. It was literally me, like, for fun, I wanted to see if I can like learn this new technology and do it. But it ended up actually being something that I ended up using. And because I had control over it, I was able to tweak a couple things, like very little details. Like, I'm really design oriented, that I wasn't like too I wasn't too happy with Sansama about. And I was like, but I also couldn't ask them to do it because they're so minor and they have so many things on their roadmap.
Yeah.
But I was able to do it. So I started using it. I put it online, and I started giving out to some friends who saw me using it, and they were like, it's typically the case with the apps that I build. They're like, oh, can I use this too? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'll just give it to you for free. Use it. And I learned my lesson from the first app that I built, Mogul. It took me like 4 years to monetize that. I just like was kind of too scared to do it, and I decided to monetize this one I think like a month into building it, just to see what would happen. And shockingly, like, people started paying for it, and that's kind of where it's at right now. It's just me just kind of iterating on it, but building on top of that initial like weekend project to see if I can like learn new technology and pull it off.
Yeah, that's really nice. Part of it, when you started to tweet out ideas and you were like talking about this before you started building it, did you feel like by having talked about it, now you're under pressure to maybe, start to put some details and actual code behind some of your ideas, or was it completely independent?
Yeah, I think there definitely was a little more of that expectation. I definitely had to like, I was definitely more motivated to like polish it up and like make sure that when users use it, I became a little bit more conscious. Like, okay, I need to make sure it's at least stable and like a lot of the basics are there. And I think that was like a big motivator, like being able to like knowing that, people were watching me do this. I think it did help like push me over the limit to take it more seriously. I think if I didn't do it, it might not even be released, to be honest. Like, it might still just be a project. I remember that there was like 2 people who did respond to like the tweet when I initially was like, hey, like I put this online. Does anyone want to use it? Even the domain ellie.so was supposed to just be a placeholder, like, because it was a weekend project, and I actually named it after my hamster. So like that's like where the name came from. And I didn't expect it to be like a real thing. I also wasn't sure if I was going to monetize it, but when I tweeted it out, 2 people actually signed up, and then they messaged me and they were like, this is amazing. Like, you need to take this seriously. And I was like, okay, like that's the motivation I need. I'll take it seriously. So for sure, if I didn't tweet that and those 2 people didn't message me, it might not even be out there right now.
When you send those tweets, was it just text, or did you include like a mock-up or an animation or a video of what you're planning on building?
Yeah. I did put I think I did put a video. For sure, if I didn't put a video, I put an image or a screenshot, but I think I did record a video just to show like the whole like, oh, you can drag things across the Kanban and scroll. And I think that did help. Like, I think that did help like visually let people know like, oh, this is what this is about. And I think that's why those 2 people tried it too, because they got that like initial, like, this would fit my workflow. Like, this is interesting. And they tried it. Without it, I don't know if they would have tried it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of getting people to try something, especially when they have skepticism on what exactly is it going to be. And so a video or an image always, at least I've historically found it to be very effective in getting people excited about something, even if the finished product is still a ways away, a couple of days, weeks, or months out. So you were tweeting some initial ideas, you spent a weekend building this project just for fun, took a video of it, shared it with people on Twitter, and you got 2 people to sign up for it. And you get the order of perfect. Yeah. And so when did you decide, from the 2 people who started using it, did they have feedback for you? Were you using them as almost like your early testers to
Yeah.
validate, are you building the right thing? Or are we still using yourself as the first customer and going like, will I still use it? Will I like
Mhm.
it? Before you were broadening
I
out
think
there.
I was definitely the first customer, and that's definitely how I treated it. And one of those users in particular, like, became kind of on that level with me, where I was like, I started taking his feedback seriously because he messaged me and he said, like, I just remember he, like, I think a week later he messaged me saying he was still using it, and he kept sending me feedback and bugs. And in terms of like friends who use my apps, like a lot of them just use it like because they're like, oh, we're being nice, like we want to use it. But this was like one of the first times where like someone that I knew who was a friend like was like, no, I like this is I'm like starting to rely on this. Like this is actually super useful for me. And I could tell like they weren't like forcing themselves to use it. So once I started noticing that, then I started taking his feedback like as seriously as mine. Like I started knowing like, okay, he's like genuinely like wants to make these things better, and he's willing to like ask because he knows like he could, he has access to the developer for this, and he could do that. But yeah, to answer your question, like both of us I think became like the initial test users.
No, that's awesome. So you probably had a roadmap based on what you think would be important
Yep.
to do. Was there anything from that feedback that just completely was like, wow, I did not realize that'd be an interesting use case. Let me now adjust my roadmap to take this feedback into account.
Yeah, there were a couple things. I remember one of them was, and it's like honestly, like I think the number one used feature that surprised me still. It's recurring tasks. So that one I was like, oh, I don't really need recurring tasks. Like I thought about it, but I was like, I don't really need it. But he was like adamant about it. He was like, I literally every morning create this like routine task, and like this is what I do in the morning. And I was like, that's actually a brilliant idea. Like, in fact, I should probably start having a routine task. And then I remember I took that feedback, and that's still like the most shocking feature where I think like probably 75% of the paid users do use that feature, which also sucks because it's the most complex feature technically, but so it causes a lot of issues. But yeah, that one is like by far the one I'm like, that's pretty, that one shocked me. Like, I'm glad I listened to him on that one.
Excellent. So once you have, it's you and two other people are currently using it, how did you broaden the number of people using the product? Was it still going to be Twitter? Was it word of mouth? Did you build a website? Walk me through your process on going from few people to more people.
So I decided to create a landing page for it. I think like a week or two after my friend and I started using it, I was like, oh, I should throw up a landing page, and then let people sign up. So I decided to put all the authentication together for signups and do all these things. But the one thing that and I learned this from Mogul, having done that for a while, is that the App Store is actually very, very generous when it comes to organic search. And I put it on the App Store. So I also made an iOS app, like really, really quickly, super basic, pulled a lot of code from Mogul to do it. So it made it easier. I think it took like a week. And I put it on the App Store as quickly as I could because I knew like, I bet people organically will find it, even though it's like a crazy competitive keyword, like, to do or daily planner, like that's really competitive. And I think I'm pretty sure I tweeted this, but within like 2 or 3 weeks, like over 100 people signed up organically, like through the App Store. And I basically did not share it. I didn't do anything. And I think the keywords they were looking for were like, to-do app or daily planner. And one of the things that's interesting compared to Google, like when someone Googles, like it's so rare they'll go to the next page of Google, or they'll even go to like the third item on Google's list. For the App Store, people go all the way down when they're searching for like to-do apps or anything. So even if you're like number 30 on the list, like they'll actually check it out. And that's how I actually got, I think, the first like, probably I guess like the first like 500 users. Like I think there's a couple at this point, even though it's been around for a little bit, and I haven't really done much marketing. Like over 90% of the users come from the organic apps App Store search, and I think there's like a couple thousand that have signed up already, like for it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you are more front end, you have some design, interest. I'm assuming that even though you were number 30 on that list, you probably designed a very nice visual icon.
Yes.
You were pretty good copy, so it didn't look like something that was just a generic utility someone created because of a Hello World sample they built. It was actually something that was well thought out. And so how much time do you spend on those level of detail? Because you're pretty busy. You mentioned that you have something you're already doing, and then you also have like you're building this app, you built the web app first, and you built the the iOS version next. And in parallel, you're also doing all this marketing and all of these kind of things. And so how do you balance the time between all these activities?
Honestly, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. Like how do I balance it? I've personally been kind of doing like tackling things mainly based on like my interests. So I'm like, oh, I really want to, I genuinely like, I really wish I could record things on my phone for this. Once I knew that, I was like, I was furiously like, I need a mobile app for myself. Like, I'm so interested. I need to do this. So it wasn't really like like, oh, these are the steps that I'm going to take. It was more like, I need a mobile app. I'm going to do it. And then the next thing was like the landing page. I was like, I am ashamed. I have no landing page. I need to do this. And then same thing for like the screenshots and everything. I kind of tackled it based on like, just like personal preference. Like, I feel like this is probably necessary. Let me drop some stuff or let me finish up some stuff and like tackle it. But yeah, I feel like I didn't really follow any like set standards. I maybe subconsciously did for Mogul because I kind of knew doing it once, like, okay, I know like how now I've seen like the power of having a good landing page and amazing screenshots on the App Store. I'm going to invest a little bit more time in this, and this is kind of the order. But I feel like I did kind of wing it a little bit, and it ended up working out, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, you probably have the muscle memory of how to do some of these things. So your default reaction would have been, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then D, which would have taken someone who didn't have your experience building another app or several apps in the past to have learned all this. I think that's actually really cool. So for the landing page, it looks very nice, by the way. Did you build it from scratch, or did you use an existing landing page builder? There's so many of them out there.
So what's funny is while we're recording this, I literally just migrated over to this thing called Framer like an hour ago. So I was kind of worried, like, oh god, like is it gonna, like, is the DNS gonna propagate? Is it gonna work? And so right now the site is currently built using Framer. Literally just wanted to try it out. I was using Webflow, and I did do it. I did do it from scratch for Webflow. I think for Mogul, I did use a template, and I modified it so heavily that I don't think it looks like the template anymore. And for Ellie's landing page, I did that one from scratch, but I took so much inspiration and like so many components from Mogul. And then for the Framer site, that the redesign I just did was completely from scratch. Also just an excuse for me to learn Framer, which I ended up like loving. And I think I'll be probably building a bunch of websites like using them now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I know they have real things they want to deal with. They don't want to deal with like creating a blog from scratch using Astra or Gatsby. I need to basically get content out in a high quality, and Framer is something that people really like. And looking through, your landing page again, it hits all the right marks because, over a period of time, you learn about like what should a good landing page have. It needs to have customer testimonials. It needs to have like what does it do? It needs to have pricing in the right order and so on. And you have all of these things provided. Did you learn more about this formally, or was it just something you learned through trial and error? What was your process for figuring all this out?
I think it was definitely trial and error. There definitely were like a lot of inspiration. So like I love looking at other people's landing pages and seeing like while I go through it, I'm like, oh my God, I love the way that they did their testimonials. Like it really like just, it just hit me harder than other sites. Or I remember, I don't know where I took the video. I remember on the old landing page for Ellie, I just had a YouTube embed. But then for the Framer site, I think I saw on one of their galleries, Framer has a gallery where they showcase a bunch of websites. I saw someone that had like an auto playing video, and then you can click it for the pop-up for the YouTube video. And I was like, wow, that looks so much cleaner than mine. So I think I just took a bunch of inspiration from a lot of things that worked, and then just kind of mashed them together, and so I kind of saw what felt right, like trying to, I think I got a little bit better at this over time, but like putting myself in the user's shoes, like, okay, if they saw this, like, what would they like to see? So like one thing that I figured out with Mogul was I had massive amounts of sections dedicated to like the features. And then I kind of realized like, actually it kind of overwhelmed, like when I went back a couple months and I read it, I was like, as a user scrolling through this, I'm kind of overwhelmed by how many features, and like, I'm just probably going to skip through it. So for like Ellie, I'm like, I'm just going to highlight like the core ones that I think like someone could resonate with, and I'm going to try to condense it like as quickly as possible. So like little things like that, it's just a lot of iteration. Like I check back on my landing page every few weeks, which is why I love no code builders like Framer and Webflow, because it makes it so if I just have an idea where I'm like, ooh, that I should change that. I don't have to spin up an environment or do anything like that. I could just easily like literally update it and then just hit publish and do that. Even though I'm a developer, like I love using no code tools like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really cool you did that. So now you launched, you have your landing page, you have a few hundred people using the product. Mm-hmm. At what point do you decide I'm going to start charging for the service?
I think this is by far like probably the biggest lesson and my biggest regret with Mogul was I didn't charge soon enough. And in all honesty, it was definitely out of fear. Like, and I think a lot of people who build products have this, like people like that I talk to in the indie hacker space. They never want to charge because they feel like it's not worth it, or they feel like no one would buy it. And that was my fear for like years. Like when I did Mogul, it was just an app that I like loved using, and I used it myself. I didn't really care too much about it. And then the minute I think I just saw someone like start charging for their thing, and I saw how much they were making, and I was like, wait, there's things so simple. There's no way, like if they're charging, maybe I could charge. So I remember I really like kind of let go of that fear. And I was like, you know what? I don't even care. Like, what's the worst that happens? Like I lose some users. So I turned on monetization for Mogul years ago, and for a year, nothing happened. Like no one actually purchased anything for a year. But the minute someone did purchase like a pro plan for Mogul, I was like, I was just like, I should have done this earlier. Like I totally should have done this earlier. So for Ellie, I decided not to make the same mistake. And I think it was like probably a month into that like hackathon, like where I built it from scratch into turning on monetization. And a big reason why I waited a little bit longer was partly for the app store, so I can get a couple more downloads and like rank a little higher, and because people are way more willing to download free apps. And then I was also too lazy to code the actual like strike logic and do all that stuff. But once I did that, within a month I like turned it on, and I think the first paid user was like I think like a week after that, which was like the best feeling, where I'm like, oh, thank God someone was willing to pay for it. Now I know at least like people are willing to pay for it. I think I put the price at $2.99 a month. And the other thing I learned from Mogul was to increase the prices if I feel like the value is there. And the thing that really pushed me over the edge was when I had two users, one person I knew and then one person I didn't know, who talked to me and said, you're not charging enough for this. And it's always a good sign when someone says that. But I didn't think, like when my friend said that, I was like, okay, you're my friend. So like, I don't know. But when the other user who I did not know was like, actually, I think you're really undercharging for this. And he was like honest enough to tell me that, even though he was paying for it. Once I heard that, I was like, yeah, I think you're right. If you're saying this, and I can tell you're not just saying this because we're talking, maybe there is more value than I'm thinking here. And so I even raised the prices, I think like probably a month after that first month. And yeah, that's so 2 months, I think, is where the current pricing is. So it was pretty quick, I think, than a typical app that people make.
So how did your existing users take it? Because you probably had a few hundred people using your product. Was the pricing something that only new users would be paying, existing users would be grandfathered into the free version of it? Or was it a case where at some point they'd also have to start paying for the capabilities?
Yeah. So I like, whenever I do something like that, I always think, okay, well, what would I want to have as a user? So every time I do something with pricing, I always grandfather people in. So I sent an email out to everyone who was on it. I think there were like maybe 200, 300 people signed up. And I said, it's your lucky day. You're grandfathered in for life. I also decided to do something interesting here and add a lifetime plan, which is very uncommon for a lot of, like, everyone's going SaaS, or everyone's going like SaaS pricing where it's like monthly subscription. I decided for Ellie to also add like a lifetime plan. So people who just wanted to do a one-time purchase like could do that. Shockingly, only 2 people have done that out of the like however many paid users. But I've had messages from people like thanking me for doing that, and then paying the subscription, but they just love that they had the option to do it. And they Oh my God, I already forgot the original question. But
It was around, I think I forgot it now as well. So interested
yeah,
in your answer here. I think
yeah,
I asked about how were existing users going to take the
yeah,
price
yeah,
increases. You answered it. You grandfather people in, so
yeah,
no one feels like a pricing change is going to retroactively now apply
yeah,
to like their long-term
yeah.
user, which I think is really great. So how did you decide on the price you started charging? You said you started off at $2.99. Was there
Yes.
a reason why you picked that price, or did you, was it just, I'm going to start here, I'm going to iterate
Yeah.
on it as time goes on?
Definitely a start and iterate. I didn't want to go too high because I knew it's way easier to go up than it is to go down. At least like personally, like it just for me, it just feels nicer to go up than to have to go down. So I knew like, okay, let me start at a low enough price point, but I also didn't want to go like too low where, like I wanted to prove that there was enough value being created here for users. So I thought 299 I think is like the lowest I'm willing to go, where like anything lower, and then I'm not sure. Maybe they're just doing it just like as an accident or like on a whim, or and they'll cancel later. But 299, I think people had to think about it. And then once I saw enough people doing it, I was like, okay, I think 499. So I decided to email everyone on the 299. You're grandfathered in. You're good to go. Prices are increasing, but don't worry about it. And then upgraded the price like a month later.
Nice. So I'm curious to know, you mentioned you emailed the people with the, who are on these various plans. What kind of a system do you use for sending the emails? Like, do you have good tracking where you can say, like, these are all the people in the free plan, these are all the people in the 299 plan, and these are the new people who are in the new plans?
Yeah.
Like, because, I would say personally, I found it to be very complicated. There's no good email system that I personally found allows segmentation of that type that is friction free as much as possible.
Yeah, you're right. There really isn't. Which is an amazing startup idea or like a product to build. I actually had to do it the manual way, where I remember I think I wrote like a Python script. No, I think I wrote a JavaScript, like something in JavaScript. It wasn't Python, but it was JavaScript. And I since I'm using Firebase, I literally just ran queries to download and figure out, okay, who are these users, export the emails, put it in a CSV for me. And then I just like sent the email out that way. But I think it did take like maybe 2 or 3 hours the first time. Then the second time, like I just modified it, so it was not too bad. So I have the script now. Maybe I could monetize the script. Maybe I can put it out there and do something.
I think it's a new side project for you right there.
Yeah. I'll call it Karupa, and then I'll.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was very manual. I didn't have anything automatic to do it, and then I think I used Mailchimp for the first one, and then I use Postmark as my email provider to send out emails, and then I like automated it out the second time and like had it run from I think I use a Cloud Function actually to like run the second time from Firebase.
Nice. What I really like about your story is that too often I hear about people saying that, okay, I send an email, I'm going to spend a weekend researching the best email solution. And then they spend a weekend researching that, and then they ultimately get the email out. Whereas in your case, you took, what I think is a more pragmatic approach, where you have a billion things going on. The most important thing right now for your product is not the email system they're going to be using to send these messages. So you start off with like, here's a scrappy way of getting the job done. And then over a period of time, you can iterate on it and add more details, which I think is actually a pretty interesting lesson for those who are watching, who are also doing
definitely.
To kind of be very focused on what activities are actually meaningful and what are the kind of things that might make you feel good that you built you picked the best email system, but the time you might have spent on that may not have been the most valuable use of your limited resources already.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is such a good way to approach it.
Nice. So you mentioned you switched to building an iOS app. Was that because you felt that the market for an iOS app would be larger than the web, or at least an iOS user would be more willing to pay for a service like this? Or was it purely just I want to learn more about how to build for iOS, and build for iOS itself?
Yeah. When for sure it was definitely out of a need for me, because as like an iOS user, I was like, I really need a mobile app to do this. I also have a lot of plans to do a lot of I really want to do quick capture really well in the future, so I can quickly capture tasks. Todoist is like the best example of people who do it really well. And I kind of knew for future roadmap, like I probably do need a native iOS app to be able to like, leverage Siri or leverage widgets or leverage widgets, do all these things. So it was definitely out of need. But there was definitely a secondary component, which I learned from Mogul, which was even for Mogul, like 90+% of the users come from organic iOS search. And that's great for someone like me who has such limited time to do like real marketing, like basically don't do any marketing. So being able to leverage this platform for that Apple has, like just to instantly, like I think I do zero work, and I think I get like 5 or 10 signups a day on both apps, just pure organic App Store search. And so I knew like I should 100% invest on this like from the get-go. I got really lucky with Mogul where I was not a React developer at the time. And so there was only an iOS app for I think like 4 years. It was just iOS. And then once I built the web version, because I wanted to learn JavaScript and I really wanted to do that, and I saw the numbers, I was like, wow, okay, for my future app, I know 100%. Like because of my limited marketing ability, I should totally do, I need to always have an iOS app like out the gates if I do it.
Did you build using any framework, or are you building on Swift and Objective-C directly?
Yeah. For Mogul, it was straight Swift. I tried learning Objective-C when it first, like when I early on, and the learning curve was too steep. And then the minute Swift came out, I was like, okay, it's level playing field. Like I should learn it now. So for Mogul, it was Swift. Ellie was also Swift, but then I really wanted to use Swift UI for Ellie, but when I tried doing it, there were just too many issues with it, and I had too many like it was just too difficult. And now though, like recently, I saw like some of the new developments with Swift UI, and I was like, okay, it looks a little bit more mature. So I spent like I semi regret it, but not really. I ported over the code base, completely ported everything to Swift UI, like I think like a month ago for Ellie. And part of it was like, I just really want to learn Swift UI. It feels like it looks so much more natural, like as someone who does front end to use it. And it just looks really fun. And then the other half was like, I really liked how they do some animation stuff and some complex things. And I felt like as a front end developer, Swift UI, like I'd be able to do some really, really nice things in the future if I just like took the time and invested and just kind of rebuilt it from scratch. It took way longer than I thought, but I think it was worth it in the end. But yeah, Swift UI for Ellie iOS, Swift, just normal Swift for mobile, and then React for the web versions.
Nice. So if you used React for the web versions, I'm curious, did you think about using React Native so that, not all of them will be portable, but enough concepts would carry over?
I did. I actually did try building Ellie. Not Ellie. I tried rebuilding Mogul because it's such a simple concept, like for Mogul, as a React Native app. The primary reason though was because I wanted to see, can I do it with Android? Like, because so many people would ask for Android apps. And I was like, oh, I in good conscience, I can't maintain all of these code bases by myself. So like, I was like, maybe React Native is a good solution. So I did try it, but at least I think it was like a year and a half ago when I tried it. There were a couple for basic stuff. It was so good, but then for certain gestures and things that I needed, honestly, I think it's because I just was not good enough to like, I didn't understand it. But I think I was spending too much time trying to fight edge cases and get complex animations. So, and since I'm really design oriented, I was like, those things are kind of make it or break it for me. And I was like, I should just switch to Swift. I'm totally open though. Like, one of the things I want to try for Android is, oh my God, Flutter. Like Flutter is something I really want to try. I've heard really good things about it. And so I think I'm going to wait like a year or two. And then when I have some free time, I'll probably attempt the Android version of Ellie with Flutter and see what I can do there. But yeah, right now, just native, just because it was easier.
Oh, that's pretty great to hear. And so I have to ask also this question is, how's your testing for this? Because I'm assuming as you keep adding more capabilities, keep adding more features, right now you're on web and iOS. Is your goal to keep parity between both platforms? And how do you make sure that something new you're adding doesn't end up breaking? Because it still does seem like you're the only person doing all the development, correct?
Yeah. I'm way more cautious now about adding features. So for Mogul, it's been so stable for a long time. And if I add something, it's usually like really minor and like, or if it's major, I break it up into like ways to make it minor. So luckily, I haven't had many issues with this. I do track everything using this service called Sentry at least for crashes and for all these things. So I monitor that heavily. And luckily, since I don't have like millions of users, it's actually manageable for me to kind of look at all these things. And but in terms of like, yeah, and it's that is definitely a shortcoming being a solo developer. I actually, for the first time, decided to usually I just push stuff out, just monitor it and see what happens and try to get an update out quickly if I did break something. But for Ellie, when I switched to Swift UI, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Like when I switched to Swift UI, I was like, this is such a major change. I literally rebuilt it. This could be so bad and so buggy that I did tell myself, like, I should probably put this on test flight, have people beta test it. And which was funny. I decided to post on Twitter and I said, if anyone's willing to help me out here, for every bug you find, I'll give you a month of premium for free. And then I upped it up because someone was like, can you make it a year? And I was like, fine. Every bug you find, I'll give you a year of premium for free. And what was interesting was no one really interacted with that tweet. Like literally, no. I think it got like 2 likes and maybe one comment. But around 200 people downloaded the test flight app and started trying it. And but what was also interesting was basically no one reported bugs. Like there was like one user who reported bugs. And either I got lucky and it wasn't that buggy, or people just like maybe there was some critical bug that stopped people from doing it. But I think that's what I'm going to do forward is like if there's big stuff, I'll probably have a couple people test it on test flight or put it on some sort of environment before I do it. But yeah, that is definitely a limit though. Like I've just kind of been putting it out there in the public, testing it as well as I can, and then just fixing it monitoring it and fixing it very retroactively.
Do you also have good telemetry in terms of like what features people are using and things like that to give you a better idea of like what UI might I optimize in the future and so on?
Yeah, I do. So I actually use Mixpanel to at least track like specific feature usage. And the main reason that I wanted to do this was also I do this thing where I kind of like it's very recent, but I decided to start putting features like on the cutting board if like I realize, oh, no one's actually using this, mainly for my sanity, so I can like to reduce the amount of technical like debt that's amassing there. So if no one's using this feature, like there's one feature that I had, this focus mode, which was a huge feature for me, where like basically you can open up a task in this focus mode and it puts a beautiful like video overlay, so you can just focus on that task. And I stopped using the feature after like a few weeks, and then I was like, okay, is anyone actually using this feature? And so I looked at the data on Mixpanel and I realized like one user a week was using it, and it was very clear, like based on the flow, that it was someone signed up and just used it to see what it was and never used it again. And so when I kind of realized that, compared to the other features, I was like, okay, I don't think this is that big of a selling point. And it was also causing me some frustration because when I ported to Swift UI, I was like, oh my God, I have to rebuild this. Like, should I do this? And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to put that on the cutting board. And honestly, after I did that, that's something I'm going to start doing is every few months, I'm going to look at the usage and see, is there something I can cut here? Or is there something that I can or I should evaluate or like redo if I feel like maybe it's just not clear enough or something. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I'm now becoming a little bit more like data driven there.
And do you foresee a world where the people using the web version of the app have very different usage patterns than people using the iOS version of the app? Which would then mean that now you're maintaining maybe a disjointed set of features for each platform that appeals to that kind of audience.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what I'm noticing right now is some people are doing that. So I've noticed, like, for example, like time box things, like dragging a task from the Kanban to Google Calendar. It's so satisfying on the web, but on the iOS, it's still nice, but it's not that big of people would rather just see a list on iOS rather than the time box on the calendar. And so I noticed that a lot of people, like, they read the time box on their phone, but they actually do a lot of the interactions on, actually, that's actually very common for like the general usage of the app. Most actions take place on the web version. And then the iOS is like a reading companion, basically, for people to like consume what they planned that day and then just check things off like pretty easily. And like, I think some people do use it to quick capture, like on the app when I'm assuming when they're on the go. and then triaging it like on the web. So yeah, the usage is extremely different, I think. It's another reason why I don't have exact parity with the app, because I realize some features just don't make sense. And I might start trimming it down even more and like really honing it in, just for also so I have an easier code base to maintain in the future.
Yeah, which typically matches the general trend that people always say, in that desktop and large screen devices are for content creation and smaller mobile devices for content consumption. And so, which makes an interesting point as well. You mentioned that you're currently focusing on your iOS app. You're going to be probably a few years away from having an Android app. One of the things that, when I used WhatsApp for the first time many, many years ago, I realized that, okay, there's no web version of it. There's no desktop version of it. It's a mobile-only experience, and it's only used for mobile scenarios.
Yep.
And then I was looking at charts about usage of where in the world WhatsApp is being used and the kind of devices it's in. It's that iOS was not the biggest market. Maybe it still isn't for WhatsApp right now. Yeah, it's Android devices worldwide. And so a part of me also feels like what you're creating here seems generally applicable to a large audience, even beyond the iOS ecosystem. Have you thought about maybe even front loading or getting ahead of the 2-year time frame of getting a version for Android users out to grow your potentially addressable market?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I think I've had like a few people, and I try to like track how many people ask for it. So I think if the demand, like I just keep having people ask about the Android version enough, I think that'll motivate me personally to be like, okay, you know what, I should try it. I should really bite the bullet, put it out there. And if I can learn like Flutter or something where it's like to my standard, I'll 100% expedite it. Like if it's there.
Is a part of it also that you personally use an iOS device, and because a lot of this is because you're building this because you just enjoy the art of building and learning things. Is that also playing a role in your?
I think that plays that's definitely the biggest role. Like for sure. Like the apps that I build for both Mogul and Ellie, like I think I definitely see myself as like the customer number one, and like if there's something that I don't like, and I also see, okay, it seems that other people don't like it, then I probably won't do it. And that's something I've also had to learn from Mogul too, is like learning, like when I get user feedback, I kind of look and I'm like, okay, would I use this? If the answer is no, there's a very high chance I won't do it, unless there's like that much demand where I'm like, okay, this is interesting enough, like, because I want to see what happens. I'll build out that feature, and like maybe I'm wrong here, maybe there's something there. But yeah, that's I think that plays a big role. Like my personal like I'm definitely maximizing for myself there.
And I do think that you probably use your own app quite a bit on a day-to-day basis. And if you build it for a platform that you don't use day-to-day, there might be things that you probably may not notice, someone may not file a bug or anything like that might get missed as well, which is a common thing you often see in many products, where people start broadening their focus to other platforms, even though the ones that the initial creators or the founders or developers are passionate about is particularly one that they spend most of their time in.
Yeah, that's true. I've definitely noticed that with like for I'm sorry, I have a dog.
I was like, is your hamster like barking? No,
I think for my next, I do plan on building like more products in the future, probably in the productivity space, and I'll probably name the next one after my dog Luna. So
there you go.
You'll probably see another one. But to answer your question, I'm trying to remember what it was actually. I remember.
No, it was more of just like just an observation around how products and what platforms you target, and your own personal use of a particular platform influencing the quality of it to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yes, okay. So I remember the for Mogul, it was interesting because I definitely use that like maybe once or twice a week, because it's just whenever I have meetings and I there's something I want to remember. And then for Ellie, this is something I use like multiple times a day. So this is the first product that I've built where it's like a daily usage kind of thing. I have definitely noticed that like things slip by on Mogul a lot more because I don't use some of the features. Like I don't use the reminder feature as much anymore. And so I haven't really paid attention to that. So definitely the most bugs like get reported about like those features that I don't use. But for Ellie, like I think I'm in there pretty deeply with I think like every single feature. So it's you're right. Like I definitely like the quality and everything is influenced by like what I'm personally like how often I use the app.
Nice. And so for Ellie, is your code all on GitHub so anyone else can contribute to it if they find any issues, or is it something that you're keeping it just close to yourself and then deploying builds?
Right now it is private. So it's private partly because I'm very ashamed of the code. I'm like, I don't want this to see the light of day. What is interesting is a couple of people on Twitter have asked like, hey, can you open source this? Can you because I would love to learn how you did this. Anytime anyone does that, I actually do invite them to check it out. And so I invite them to the repo and they can play around with it for a month or two. And so I've done that 3 times with Mogul and Ellie, where I'm like, okay, you should check it out. But I always warn them, I'm very new to I feel like I'm not that great of a coder and I'm trying to get a lot better. So don't take these as best practices. I'm also building really quickly. And, but I feel like the people who have checked it out, they were like, oh, this is so interesting to see the technical debt you amassed on purpose to move quickly, or the shortcuts you did. So maybe I think if I polish it up or I do a couple of sprints where I refactor code, then maybe it'll see the light of day. But yeah, for now it's, if anyone wants to see it, you can just reach out and I'm very open to letting them check it out to see how it works.
Yeah, speaking of how it works, also I'm curious, what's your deployment pipeline like? You have a web app, you have an iOS app. Does it all go through GitHub, and then GitHub is a source of truth for going from there to a production build, or how do you get all this thing orchestrated?
Yeah, it's mainly so I love testing new technologies and new everything. And recently I moved everything, including Mogul. I was using GitHub Actions for a while and just deploying to. Since they're just for the React apps, they're just React apps. I was able to get away just deploying them on an S3 bucket and just doing that. And obviously both using Firestore as the backend for storage and authentication and Cloud Functions. I'm using a lot of these things. But I recently switched to Vercel for deployment for the React apps, and it's been amazing because it also allows me to link up branches to create staging sites and try things out and do all these things. So I can send anytime a user has a really critical bug where I'm like, oh, this could impact a bunch of things. I can use Vercel to spin up a staging link for them to use. So every deployment gets a staging link, which is amazing. And then they can just use it and confirm oh, this looks good. And then I can just roll it out to everyone. And then for iOS, it's a lot more straightforward. It's test, it goes, build it, test flight, then the app store. And so it's a lot more straightforward there. But Vercel has been really, it's been so quick, and I love the auto staging links that they have. But it's really simple, very, very basic stuff. I did not have any pipeline for the longest time because I was just going so quickly, and I was like, I don't need that. I can just roll this out. And so I used to just go straight from when it gets committed, let's just push it out. But I'm a little bit more cautious now that I have a lot more users that are using it. Back when it was maybe 100, I didn't care that much, but now I take it a little more seriously because I get complaints now, if it goes down or something breaks.
No, that's great to hear. Now, this is not me pushing you to consider Firebase or anything like that. But today's FireConf, and as it turns out, we actually announced a pretty big upgrade to our hosting product.
Really?
Where now you can actually deploy static and server-side rendered content. And we're also working on making sure that when you have backend and front ends, in the preview channel, it's pinned to that version, so you can actually do a lot of that thing. And the GitHub action that you always had could potentially do some of these things as well.
Okay.
So, when among the many things you have to do at some point, I'd love for you to give it a shot. And
yeah. No, for sure.
Personally on this one, on how you feel it works. It's one of the things that the team and I have been working pretty closely on for the past year or so.
Yeah, we should chat about it. I would love to hear more about how that works. By the way, I also religiously for 3 years, I would check the Firebase blog every single day because I was always so fascinated. Okay, when is what new features are they going to come out with? And I remember the biggest one was I think when it started supporting it might have been OR queries. I think I remember for the longest time, Firebase did not have OR queries, or they couldn't do some sort of searching that was really basic. And I just remember like when I saw that, I was like, I need to follow this blog. Like I need to read it religiously, like because I need to know when these new things happen. But that's like awesome that you guys are coming out with like so many nice stuff, so many nice things. So I'll ask you about it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, getting back to Ellie and the work you're doing right now. So you recently tweeted saying that, okay, you're going to, focus more on the marketing side of the product. And so how do you do the marketing? Do you pay somebody? Do you do ads? What's your thought process for going big?
Yeah, this is so it's something I'm really new to. So I'm trying to like also figure it out. I'm really lucky that for like the main company that I work at like every day, it's way more established. So there's like actually budget for marketing and we're trying to actually do marketing. It's super different though, because it's like B2B, like business to business. And the apps that I build are like B2C, business to consumer. So it's like very consumer focused. And what I've learned is that the marketing is, it's extremely different, but there are some like commonalities. So like when it comes to things like SEO, when it comes to things like content and traffic, some of these things are actually pretty common. And then there's like other things that are a bit different. But the way that I'm thinking about it is, given my limited like bandwidth, I want to do things that like really maximize my like kind of lack of time, or the fact that I only have like pockets of time to do. So for example, like I considered, oh, maybe I'll do like a lot of social media stuff. And then I realized like, I don't have the bandwidth to like do it consistently. Like, I don't think I can. So one of the first things that I 100% will do, which I learned from doing like Aloha marketing, is like I really should start investing in like SEO and content, because it's something that I can do in my own time. I can start building up. I'm sure like literally creating content. Like this is something that like you could kind of do asynchronously or at your own pace, but it'll like reap benefits over time and like as time goes on. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do, and then for Mogul, I experimented a lot with different things. So I actually experimented with paid ads, which I actually learned a lot about. The biggest thing that paid ads got me was testing out different audiences and figuring out, who should Mogul be for? That was super fascinating. And then I also experimented a little bit with partnerships. So like partnering with like MBA students or like the MBA schools or different things for like Mogul. I'm not sure what I can do with Ellie, but I might revisit those, like the paid ads and the partnerships. But 100% the first one, given the time constraints, is going to be like more content, inbound, organic stuff.
And are you going to be creating all that content yourself, or are you going to be outsourcing it to some other company?
I think I'm going to be creating it myself. I'm going to start first with more like programmatic stuff, which I honestly, just because out of interest, like I'm very interested in like how to do this. But and what I mean by that is like spinning up different landing pages that are like more or less like auto-generated, but just swapping out like large pieces of content. And so experimenting with some of these, targeting certain keywords. And then I think I'm going to be writing a lot of the content. So I'm going to have to probably take a break, which is this is why I tweeted, like, I'm going to have to take a step back. And I'm just kind of in pure like maintenance, like bug fixing mode, or like very critical features that I think I can crank out. And I think for the next like month or two, it's just going to be like, let's just focus on content. So all my dev time will basically be going to like creating content right now.
No, that's exciting. I'd be curious to see how all of that plans out and which variation of the homepage I land on at some point in the future when I visit Ellie Data. So
yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, Chris, it was actually great chatting with you about all this and learning a lot about how you're building in the public, how you went from tweeting about some ideas to actually building something, and all of your thought process into thoughtfully going from every stage of building an application to getting it into ever increasing numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to, especially since I'm documenting everything. If we ever do a follow up or we do something, we can always, we can kind of share and compare, like, okay, how did that stuff pan out? Like, how did the marketing pan out? Like, how did these things, did it actually work? So that's the beauty of documenting this publicly and like doing something like this podcast. So thank you so much for having me. This was
absolutely. Thank you for your time. And yes, I think we definitely have a round 2 of this where we get to follow up on a lot of the things that you learned and then things you might do differently next time around.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.